Hi guys, welcome back to our podcast Global Insights.
Today I'm Giz and this is
Victoria,
and we will be focusing on the effects of climate change, specifically on lower income countries. And as you know, the previous episode, Emilia and Stella, they did a wonderful podcast about child labor, specifically in Congo, and mostly about the mining industry.
Yes, so let's begin with a quick definition of our today's topic so that you guys will be able to get to know our topic a bit better. So Giz, what exactly is climate change?
So climate change, it refers to the long-term shifts in temperatures, and it can also refer to weather patterns, so extreme hotness or extreme coldness. And human activities have been the main driver of climate change. I think this is common knowledge. I think we all know that. And it's also primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels such as gas, oil, and coal. And another main factor that affects climate change is deforestation, which is also a topic that is on the agenda for us.
Yes, excellent definition. Thank you, Giz. I think that thanks to your explanation, we can move forward. And in today's episode, we're gonna mainly focus on two countries that we chose in Africa. The first one is Kenya, and the second one is Ghana. But before delving into those two countries, we're gonna talk about the main factors of climate change so that again you will get to know the topic better. And yeah, I think we can start.
Yeah, and so basically these will be the factors that we chose which affect the lower income countries the most, and how lower income countries get negatively influenced by these factors.
Yes, so let's start with health. And what can we say about health? The climate crisis severely jeopardizes the realization of universal health coverage.
And this is by compounding the existing burden of disease, and also by decreasing existing barriers to accessing health services. And to elaborate on this, since we chose the countries Kenya and Ghana, this was also due to the fact that we know that there's hard healthcare access there, provided it's really not easy to gain sufficient or easy healthcare access. And yeah.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Giz, and I also believe that healthcare is a very, very important factor that is unfortunately affected by climate change. But moving forward, still in health, what else can we say? Globally, warming of 2 to 3 degrees might result in more than 150 million additional cases of malaria worldwide. Or a 5% increase in the number of people at risk.
And as you know, malaria is a really common and lethal disease, which is mostly found in African countries, and also the countries that we will focus on today. Malaria is a really serious healthcare issue. And all of these statistics that Victoria just listed, we got them from World Economic Forum 2023.
Yes. So let's move forward to our second factor, which is hunger. And hunger mostly affects people living in lower income countries.
So they will be impacted by changes in food production the most, as well as the higher consumption prices and changes in rural incomes, for example. This will be a consequence of impacts on agricultural productivity. Do you agree?
Yes, I agree with you, Giz. And I also think that it is a huge problem in African countries, especially Kenya and Ghana, which are the countries that we chosen. And according to those information,
also from the World Economic Forum 2023, yeah,
we decided to choose those countries And yeah, I think we can move forward to our next factor, which is water scarcity.
So, access to water, it's becoming threatened by climate change, as we know. And for example, frequent droughts, increased evaporation, and changes in rainfall patterns, these particularly impact water availability in areas like the subtropics, for example. And these areas already experience water scarcity, and with the effects of climate change, it just gets worse and worse.
Yes. And let's move forward to education, because as we know, climate change also affects education, which is really bad, because many families have to survive economic downturns. And due to those downturns, a lot of families have to pull out their children out of school to save on fees and putting them to, for example, work to make up for lost income, which is obviously really bad for children's education, because instead of gaining new knowledge, they have to work so that they will be...
Exactly. So because the families need more money to survive, they send their children to work, because if their children don't go to work, there won't be enough food, or there won't be enough income to keep them going.
Yes. And our next factor, the topic that we're going to talk about right now, is creating refugees. So climate change is a powerful driver of internal migration.
And why is that?
It's because of its impacts on people's livelihoods and loss of livability in highly exposed locations.
Oh, so extreme weather conditions, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
And the last topic that we're going to talk about today, before moving on to the countries, is work-related hazards.
Yes, work-related hazards, what can we say? Excessive heat during work creates, as we all know, occupational health risks. It restricts a worker's physical functions and capabilities.
And this decreases work capacity and productivity of the company, which then results in the downturns of the economy of the country.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, I think we are finally ready to go back to our countries that we want to focus on in today's episode. Let's start with Kenya, because both of us visited that country. So, Giz, what can you say about climate change in that country as you recently visited?
For me, as I visited the country earlier this year, I've realized that the effects of climate change have gotten worse and worse since you visited in 2019, and I know that we've talked about it. I've realized that a lot has changed. And to be more specific, I would say that the farmers get affected the most by these climate changes, like by the effects of climate change.
Yes,
Do you
exactly.
agree?
I totally agree with you. I've also noticed that people they needed to plant more trees, and especially fruit trees. What do you know about that?
I think if they plant fruit trees, it's first of all better for the environment, and second of all, then the farmers have something like output. You know, they're taking care of these trees, but they're also gaining nutrition, and they can also sell these trees, make money. I think fruit trees are actually a really good way of at least decreasing climate change to a certain level.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, let's focus a bit more on farmers. So it's unfortunately really bad for them. Climate change is affecting them on a really huge scale, because they just need to adapt to the effects.
Yeah, and it's obviously really hard for them to adapt to these effects because climate change has been just getting worse and worse. And obviously, us also as people, we need to learn how to adapt to these changes, basically.
Yeah, and as we've talked recently, those effects are also different in many different parts of the country, right?
For example, Nairobi we can talk about because I think we've both been there, you in 2019 and me recently this year. I would say that the rain definitely got cut short due to the climate change in Africa, don't you think?
Yes, I also think so.
And Nairobi is closer to the equator. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that closer you are to the equator, worst effects you have. And we also know that from the World Bank 2023.
This was one of the resources that we used while making this podcast.
Yes. I think now we can move to our next country, which is Ghana. So how does climate change affect that country? What do we know about that? So climate change drives settled families to migrate. And why is that, Giz?
I think it's due to definitely the high temperatures, so the increase in the temperatures. This impacted, as we also said, while we were talking about Kenya, as we also said, it impacts the farmers the most. It impacts the farmers of the country the most. This can be backed up by the decreasing yields and also the increasing presence of pests and diseases.
Yes, exactly. What else can we say? As we all know, the fishing industry in Ghana is pretty well developed, but unfortunately, due to climate change, it's under a big stress. Also because of the reproductive patterns of fish species and
warming water temperature, I would say, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And this is not only something that affects the fishing industry, it also affects most of the animal species in Ghana, but we just wanted to give an example of the fishing industry because it's a really big industry in Ghana, as you've learned now.
Yeah. And lastly, let's talk about infrastructure damage. What is it caused by?
It's usually caused by flooding, and it disrupted economic activities, and this was also again caused by extreme weather changes due to climate change, so extreme hotness and extreme coldness, for example.
Yes, and to summarize that country, the things that we've learned about it, as we all know, Ghana is the West African country which has achieved major development gains over the past 3 decades, but progress has slowed down. And now, referring to World Bank 2023, we know that the country has not fully managed to convert its natural wealth into, for example, sufficient infrastructure, human and institutional capital for sustained growth.
Yeah, I think this was all for today. Thank you guys so much for listening. For the next episode, I hope that we keep you as followers, and we will see you next episode with Stella and Emilia.
Yes, thank you so much and can't wait to see you again.